He took the house. He took the car. He took the children. He took everything she'd helped him build for 14 years. And he did it all while she was dropping their kids at school. Victoria Ashford pulled into the driveway of the home she'd lived in for 11 years and knew immediately that something was wrong. There was a van in the driveway she didn't recognize. A man in a gray uniform was walking toward her, clipboard in hand. She stepped out of her car, a silver Honda Odyssey that had seen better days, purchased when Marcus said they needed to be careful with money, even though she knew his company was worth millions. Mrs. Ashford? The man's voice was professionally neutral, the voice of someone paid to deliver bad news. Yes, I'm here to repossess this vehicle. He held up the clipboard. It's registered to Ashford Development Group. Mr. Ashford has reported it as company property. Tori stared at him. This is my car. I drive my children to school in this car. I understand, ma'am, but the registration is clear. I'm going to need the keys. Behind her, the front door of the house opened. A woman Tori didn't recognize stepped out, followed by another man in a suit. Mrs. Ashford? The suited man approached her. I'm here to serve you with these documents. He handed her a manila envelope. Thick. Heavy. You have 72 hours to respond to the emergency custody petition. There's also a temporary restraining order. You are not to enter the premises or contact the minor children until the hearing. The words didn't make sense. They were English words, arranged in sentences, but they didn't make sense. What are you talking about? Tori's voice came out strange, distant. These are my children. This is my house. Ma'am, the locks have been changed. Your belongings have been packed. You can arrange to pick them up through your attorney. I don't have an attorney. The man almost looked sympathetic. Almost. Then you should get one. You have 72 hours. He walked past her and got into a dark sedan. The woman from the house, a locksmith based on her uniform, was already packing up her tools. The repo man was standing beside the Honda, waiting. Tori looked down at the envelope in her hands, her name typed in cold block letters. Victoria Ashford. She opened it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Emergency motion for temporary custody. Temporary restraining order. Affidavit of Marcus J. Ashford. She flipped to the affidavit, her hands trembling. The respondent has exhibited increasingly erratic and unstable behavior over the past several months. She has threatened to harm herself and the children. She has abandoned her responsibilities as a mother and wife. She is unfit to care for minor children. Every word was a lie. Every single word. She kept reading. On the morning of October 15th, the respondent left the marital residence without explanation, abandoning the children. I have been forced to assume full responsibility for their care and safety. October 15th was today. She had left to drop the kids at school. She had done it every single day for 12 years. The papers shook in her hands. She looked up at the house. Her house. The house where she'd hung every curtain, painted every room, hosted every birthday party, or rocked every sick child through every fever. The repo man cleared his throat. Ma'am? The keys? Numbly, she reached into her purse and handed them over. He gave her a receipt, got into her minivan, and drove away. She stood alone in the driveway. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. Don't try to contact the children. You'll only make this worse for yourself. Sign the settlement agreement, take what you're offered, and walk away. This is the only warning you'll get. M. Marcus. Her husband of 14 years, the father of her children, the man she'd helped build from nothing into a millionaire. He had planned this. Every detail, every document, every lie. While she was packing lunches and helping with homework and washing his clothes and managing his schedule, he had been planning to destroy her. Her phone buzzed again. Her banking app, sending a notification. Alert. Account frozen pending legal hold. Contact your financial institution for details. She opened her wallet. $47, 2 20s, a 5, and 2 1s. $47. No car, no house, no children, no access to any account. $47 and 72 hours. She stood in the driveway of a house that was no longer hers, wearing clothes she'd bought with money he controlled, holding papers full of lies that could take her children away forever. And something inside her shifted. Not broke, not crumbled. Shifted. She looked at the house one more time. At the windows of Olivia's room, where she'd read 1,000 bedtime stories. At Ethan's window, where a Spider-Man nightlight still glowed because he was afraid of the dark. Her children were in there, probably confused, probably scared, probably believing whatever lies their father had already started telling them. "I'm coming back," she whispered to those windows. "I'm coming back, and I'm taking everything." She turned and started walking. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she wasn't going to stand in that driveway and cry. She wasn't going to give Marcus the satisfaction. 6 blocks later, she called the only person she could think of. Renee answered on the second ring. "Hey girl, what's up?" Tori's voice was steady. Hollow, but steady. "I need help. Marcus locked me out. He took the kids. He froze our accounts. I have $47 and 72 hours before an emergency custody hearing. And he's already filed a restraining order with an affidavit full of lies." Silence on the other end. Then Renee's voice, sharp and focused. "Where are you right now?" "Walking down Providence Road." "I don't know where I'm going." "You're coming to my house. Don't talk to anyone. Don't respond to any messages. Don't post anything online. Just get to my house. I'm texting you the Uber code. I can't afford. I'm paying. Just get here. We're going to figure this out." Renee, he took everything. Then we're going to take it back. The Uber arrived 8 minutes later. Tori sat in the back seat, watching the Charlotte skyline pass by, the papers still clutched in her lap. 72 hours. In 72 hours, a judge would decide if she ever saw her children again. A judge who would read those lies, hear Marcus's expensive lawyer, and see a woman with no resources and no representation. 72 hours to build a case against a man who had spent 18 months preparing for this moment. It seemed impossible. But somewhere in the back of her mind, in the part of her brain that had always thought like an accountant, that had always noticed when numbers didn't add up, that had always kept records just in case, a different thought was forming. Marcus thought she was helpless. Marcus thought she was weak. Marcus thought she would sign whatever he put in front of her and disappear. Marcus had made a mistake, because Tori Ashford wasn't helpless. She wasn't weak. And she definitely wasn't going to disappear. She was going to make him regret every lie, every stolen dollar, every manipulation. She just needed to figure out how. But before I tell you exactly how Tori fought back against a man with unlimited resources and 18 months of planning, I need you to do something important. If you believe in real stories about justice, resilience, and women who refuse to be destroyed, hit that subscribe button right now. Take 2 seconds and click it, then smash that like button because it genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need these stories. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Are you in Charlotte, Atlanta, Houston, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles? I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's get back to Tori, because what she discovered in the next 48 hours changed everything. And what she walked into that courtroom with? It didn't just save her children. It ended Marcus Ashford's entire empire. Renee Marshall's apartment was small, clean, and filled with the kind of organized chaos that came from a single mother working 60 hours a week while raising a teenager. Law books were stacked on the kitchen table. Case files lined the shelves where other people might have kept decorations. Renee had been a paralegal at Davidson Family Law for 11 years. She'd seen every kind of divorce, every kind of custody battle, every kind of financial manipulation a wealthy spouse could devise. But she'd never seen anything quite like what Marcus Ashford had done to her best friend. "Tell me everything," Renee said, setting a cup of coffee in front of Tori. "From the beginning. Don't leave anything out." Tori wrapped her hands around the warm mug and tried to organize her thoughts. Her brain felt like it was running through fog. He's been different for about 2 years. She started slowly. Distant, working late, picking fights over nothing. I thought it was stress from the business. I thought maybe we were just going through a rough patch. Every marriage has rough patches. She took a breath. About 6 months ago, I started noticing things. He changed the passwords on all our financial accounts. He said it was for security reasons, something about a data breach at his office. I believed him. Why wouldn't I believe my husband? What else? He started keeping his phone locked, face down, taking calls in other rooms. I asked him once if something was wrong, and he accused me of being paranoid, controlling. He said I was suffocating him. Classic deflection, Renee said quietly, making you feel crazy for noticing the truth. Tori nodded. Then about 3 months ago, he sat me down and said he wanted me to sign some papers. Estate planning, he said. Tax purposes? I didn't read them carefully. I trusted him. She looked down at her hands. I think those papers might have transferred assets out of my name. He had me sign a lot of things over the years. Power of attorney documents, LLC formations. I didn't always understand what I was signing, but he was my husband. He handled the business stuff. I handled everything else. Renee's jaw tightened. That's financial abuse. That's textbook financial abuse. I know that now. Do you have copies of anything? Any of those documents you signed? Tori reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. She set it on the table. 6 months ago, when things started feeling wrong, I started making copies. Not of everything. I didn't have access to everything. But I would sometimes see documents on his desk, in his briefcase, tax returns, bank statements, property records. I photographed them with my phone and transferred them to this drive. Renee's eyes widened. You've been building a file? I didn't think of it that way. I just thought... Tori paused. I thought if something happened, I should have proof. Proof of what we built together. Proof of what existed. Tori, this could be huge. Renee picked up the flash drive. Can I look at this? That's why I brought it. Renee moved to her laptop, inserted the drive, and began scrolling through the files. Her expression shifted from curious to focused to something Tori couldn't quite read. How much do you know about Marcus's business? Renee asked, not looking up. I know he started Ashford Development with one property 14 years ago. A duplex we bought with money I saved from working 2 jobs. I did the books for the first 5 years. I know he owns commercial properties all over Charlotte. Shopping centers, apartment buildings, office spaces. Do you know how much it's all worth? The last time I saw anything concrete, maybe 2 years ago, the company was valued at around $12 million. But Marcus always said the numbers were complicated. Tax purposes, he said. The real value was different from the paper value. Renee was silent for a long moment, scrolling through files. Tori, she finally said, her voice strange. When did you take this photo? She turned the laptop around. On the screen was a bank statement Tori vaguely remembered photographing. The account was in the name of something called Meridian Holdings, LLC. Maybe 4 months ago? It was in his briefcase. I only had a few seconds. Renee pointed at a number on the statement. This account has $1.3 million in it. She scrolled to another document. And this one, something called Coastal Property Partners, has $890,000. And here's a property deed for a house in Wilmington that I'm guessing you didn't know existed. Tori stared at the screen. We don't own anything in Wilmington. According to this, Meridian Holdings, LLC, owns a 4-bedroom oceanfront property, purchased 18 months ago. Cash. She looked at Tori. 18 months is about when you said he started acting different. Tori felt sick. 18 months. He'd been planning this for 18 months. There's more. Renee kept scrolling. Tax returns that don't match what you thought the company was worth. Wire transfers to accounts in different states. Property records for addresses you've never heard of. She turned to face Tori directly. I'm not a forensic accountant, but this looks like systematic asset hiding. He's been moving money out of anything with your name on it and into entities you didn't know existed. If I'm reading this right, the Ashford Development Group you know about might be the tip of the iceberg. How much? Tori's voice was barely a whisper. How much did he hide? Based on what's on this drive? At least 3 or 4 million that I can see. But this is just what you happen to photograph. There could be much more. Tori thought about the house in Providence Plantation, the Mercedes Marcus drove, the country club membership, the private schools, the lifestyle that had always seemed just at the edge of affordable. She thought about all the times Marcus had told her they needed to be careful with money. All the times he'd said the business was doing okay, but they couldn't afford to be extravagant. He was hiding it, she said slowly. The whole time. He was making money and hiding it so that when this day came, I would have nothing. Renee nodded. That's exactly what he was doing. Something cold and sharp formed in Tori's chest. Not despair. Not grief. Fury. He told me we couldn't afford a vacation last summer, she said quietly. He told the kids we had to be careful. He made Olivia feel guilty for wanting new volleyball gear. And the whole time, he had millions in hidden accounts. I spent 12 years supporting him, Tori continued, her voice hardening. I dropped out of college for him. I worked 2 jobs while he got started. I did the books. I managed the house. I raised the children while he built his empire. And he was planning to throw me away like I was nothing. She stood up abruptly, pacing Renee's small living room. He doesn't get to do this, she said. He doesn't get to steal 14 years of my life and walk away with everything. He's not going to, Renee said, because now we have leverage. Leverage doesn't help me in 72 hours. Tori's voice cracked. I have a custody hearing. I have a judge who's going to read an affidavit full of lies. I have no lawyer, no money, and no way to prove any of this in time. Renee was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. You don't have money, but you have something better. What? Me? Renee stood up. I've been a paralegal for 11 years. I know how to file motions. I know how to organize evidence. I know what judges in Mecklenburg County respond to. She walked to her bookshelf and pulled down a thick binder. And I know that your husband's lawyer, Gregory Whitfield, has a reputation for being aggressive but sloppy. He wins because he outspends people, not because he's thorough. If we can show the judge even a fraction of what's on this drive, we can create enough doubt to stop the emergency custody order. Can we really do that in 72 hours? We don't have to prove everything in 72 hours. We just have to prove enough. Enough to show the judge that Marcus is hiding assets. Enough to show that his affidavit is full of lies. Enough to buy you time for a full investigation. Tori looked at her friend. Why are you doing this? You could get in trouble. Your firm could. My firm represents people like Marcus all the time. Renee's voice was hard. They win because the other side can't afford to fight back. Just once, I want to help the other side. She held out her hand. So what do you say? Are we doing this? Tori took her hand. We're doing this. The next 48 hours were a blur of coffee, legal research, and documentation. Renee's apartment became a war room. The kitchen table disappeared under stacks of printouts, highlighted passages, and sticky notes. Tori's flash drive was copied 3 times, backups stored in different locations, because Renee said the first rule of evidence was redundancy. They worked through the first night, sleeping in shifts, fueled by desperation and determination. Renee taught Tori how to organize evidence for court presentation, how to cross-reference documents, how to build a timeline that showed the pattern of Marcus's deception. And as they worked, Tori began to see the full scope of what her husband had done. He'd started hiding assets 18 months ago, right after their 12th anniversary. The same month he'd started coming home late. The same month he'd changed the passwords. Shell companies were formed in Delaware and Wyoming, states chosen specifically for their corporate secrecy laws. Properties were purchased in names she'd never heard of. Bank accounts were opened at institutions she didn't know existed. And at the center of it all, like a spider in a web, was Meridian Holdings, LLC. Meridian owned everything that mattered. The offshore accounts funneled money into Meridian. The hidden properties were held by Meridian. Even the house in Wilmington was in Meridian's name. And Meridian was controlled by one person, Marcus Ashford. But here's what doesn't make sense, Renee said on the second morning, staring at a printout. According to your household tax returns, Marcus reported income of about $400,000 last year. Solid money, but not empire money. So the cash flowing through these hidden accounts is way more than that. Like, way more. Renee pointed at a series of wire transfers. There's almost $2 million moving through Meridian in the past year alone. Where's that money coming from? Tori frowned. I don't know. The development company has investors. Maybe it's coming from the projects? Maybe. Renee didn't sound convinced. Or maybe your husband's not just hiding assets from you. Maybe he's hiding income from everyone. What do you mean? I mean, maybe there's a reason he's using all these shell companies. Not just to keep you from getting half in the divorce, but to keep other people from seeing what he's really making. Other people like who? Renee looked at her. Like the IRS. Like his business partners. Like investors who might not appreciate their money being siphoned into personal accounts. Tori's mind raced. Marcus had always kept her away from the business side. He said it was complicated. He said she wouldn't understand. He said he had accountants and lawyers who handled everything. What if he was keeping her away because there was something to hide? We need help, Tori said. Real help. Someone who understands financial fraud. I know someone, Renee said slowly. A forensic accountant. She's expensive, but she's the best in the state. She's taken down CEOs. Embezzlers. Even a state senator once. I told you, I don't have money. She does pro bono cases sometimes. For women in situations like yours. Let me reach out. Renee made the call that afternoon. Sandra Okafor, forensic accountant, agreed to look at the files. The response came 4 hours later. Mrs. Ashford needs to call me immediately. What I'm seeing here is significant. Tori called from Renee's phone. Mrs. Ashford. Sandra's voice was professional, clipped, with a faint Nigerian accent. Your husband has been running a systematic asset concealment scheme for at least 2 years. What you've captured on this drive represents approximately $4.7 million in hidden assets. Tori's breath stopped. $4.7 million? At minimum. There are references to other entities and accounts I don't have full documentation for. The actual number could be higher. But that's... She couldn't finish the sentence. $4.7 million, while he told her they couldn't afford a family vacation. There's more, Sandra continued. Some of these transactions don't just represent hidden assets. They represent potential fraud. Money is moving in ways that suggest unreported income, possible embezzlement from his own company, and transactions that his business partners and investors almost certainly don't know about. What does that mean? It means your husband isn't just trying to cheat you in the divorce. He's been running a scheme that could expose him to criminal liability, and I suspect he doesn't know that you have documentation of any of this. Tori's mind was spinning. Criminal liability. Her husband. The father of her children. Mrs. Ashford, Sandra said. Her voice gentler now. You need to understand something. The documents you photographed, the ones you thought were just protecting yourself in case of divorce, they may actually be evidence of serious financial crimes. What do I do with that? Tomorrow's custody hearing is about your children. We focus on that first. But after that, once you've secured your position, we're going to take a very close look at everything Marcus Ashford has done. Sandra paused. And Mrs. Ashford? The house in Wilmington? I did some additional research. It's not just a beach house. What is it? It's being lived in. There's a woman named Brittany Cole listed as the resident on utility accounts. She's employed as the marketing director at Ashford Development Group. Tori closed her eyes. He bought another woman a house. With money he hid from me. I'm sorry, Sandra said. I know this is a lot. No. Tori's voice was steady now. Cold. I'm glad I know. Mrs. Ashford, for tomorrow's hearing, I can provide a preliminary summary of the hidden assets. Something simple that any judge can understand. It won't prove everything, but it will prove enough to show that your husband has been systematically deceiving the court. Can you have it ready by morning? I'll work through the night if I have to. Why? Tori asked. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Sandra was quiet for a moment. Because 15 years ago, I was you. A different country, a different husband, but the same story. Someone helped me then. Now I help others. She paused. And because men like Marcus Ashford think they can hide anything if they have enough money and enough lawyers. I enjoy proving them wrong. That night, Tori didn't sleep. She sat at Renee's kitchen table, surrounded by documents that proved her husband was a liar, a thief, and a fraud. Documents that proved the life she'd built had been a carefully constructed illusion. But somewhere between midnight and dawn, something changed inside her. The grief was still there. The betrayal. The fury. But underneath it all, something else was growing. Hope. Because tomorrow she was walking into that courtroom. And she wasn't walking in empty-handed. She was walking in with the truth. And if she'd learned anything in the past 72 hours, it was that the truth was a weapon Marcus had never considered. He thought she was powerless. He was wrong. The Mecklenburg County Courthouse stood in the heart of uptown Charlotte, a massive stone building designed to make people feel small. Tori had driven past it 1,000 times but had never been inside. She walked through the metal detectors at 8:47 a.m., wearing a conservative navy dress Renee had lent her and carrying a single manila envelope. 72 hours ago, she'd had $47 and no hope. Now she had evidence, not all of it, not enough to prove everything, but enough. Enough to show a judge that Marcus Ashford was a liar. The courtroom was smaller than she'd expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lighting, rows of plastic chairs that creaked when you sat down. It looked tired, ordinary, like justice was just another item on the day's schedule. Marcus was already there. He sat at the petitioner's table with his lawyer, Gregory Whitfield, a silver-haired man in a suit that probably cost more than Tori's entire wardrobe. They were reviewing documents, calm and confident, like this was already over. Marcus looked up when she entered. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that she'd actually shown up. That she wasn't crying, wasn't begging, wasn't already broken. Then the mask slid back into place. The concerned husband, the protective father, the reasonable man just trying to do what was best for his children. She'd seen that mask so many times. She'd believed it for 14 years. Not anymore. She walked to the respondent's table and sat down alone. She placed the manila envelope in front of her. She folded her hands on top of it, and she waited. The bailiff called the room to order. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Coleman presiding. Everyone stood. Judge Coleman entered through a side door, her black robe flowing as she took her seat behind the bench. She was an African-American woman in her early 60s, with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. Please be seated. Tori sat. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. Judge Coleman reviewed the file in front of her. Case 2-024-CVD-4871. Ashford versus Ashford. Emergency petition for temporary custody and restraining order. She looked up. Mr. Whitfield, you're representing the petitioner? Yes, Your Honor. Gregory Whitfield for Marcus Ashford and Mrs. Ashford. The judge's eyes moved to Tori. I don't see counsel listed for you. Are you representing yourself? Yes, Your Honor. I'm proceeding pro se. Marcus leaned toward Gregory and whispered something. Gregory smiled. Judge Coleman made a note. Mrs. Ashford, pro se representation is your right, but I want to make sure you understand that these proceedings could have significant impact on your parental rights. Are you certain you don't want to request a continuance to obtain counsel? I'm certain, Your Honor. Tori's voice was clear and steady. I have 72 hours worth of preparation, and I'm ready to present my response. The judge's eyebrow raised slightly. Very well. Mr. Whitfield, you may present your client's petition. Gregory stood, smooth and practiced. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. My client is a successful businessman and devoted father who has become increasingly concerned about his wife's mental stability and parenting capacity. He launched into a speech that Tori had heard before, in different words, through different documents. The affidavit brought to life. She was erratic. She was unstable. She had abandoned the children. She couldn't be trusted. Every word was a lie. Every single word. But Gregory told the lies with conviction, with authority, with the confidence of a man who had never been challenged by someone without money. When he finished, the judge turned to Tori. Mrs. Ashford, you may respond. Tori stood slowly. She looked at the judge, not at Marcus. Your Honor, I need to begin by addressing the affidavit my husband submitted. Every material claim in that document is false. She took a breath. My husband claims I abandoned my children on October 15th. The reality is that I left the house at 7:45 a.m. to drive them to school, as I have done every single weekday for the past 12 years. When I returned home at 8:30 a.m., the locks had been changed. My belongings had been packed, and I was served with divorce papers and a restraining order. She pulled out her phone. I have time-stamped photographs from that morning showing me with my children at breakfast, in the car, and at the school drop-off line. I have the school's attendance record confirming I signed them in. I did not abandon anyone. I was locked out of my own home. Gregory stood. Your Honor, photographs can be manipulated. The attendance record proves nothing about her fitness as a parent. The photographs are time-stamped and can be verified. Tori continued, ignoring him. But that's not the most important evidence I have. She picked up the manila envelope. Your Honor, My husband has claimed that he is a responsible provider who has been forced to assume full care of the children due to my instability. But the truth is that my husband has been systematically hiding marital assets for the past 18 months in preparation for this divorce. Gregory's head snapped toward her. Your Honor, this is outrageous. We're here about custody, not— If I may finish, Tori said calmly. Judge Coleman held up a hand to Gregory. Let her speak. Tori opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of documents. In this envelope, Your Honor, I have preliminary documentation of at least $4.7 million in hidden assets. Shell companies formed in Delaware and Wyoming, properties my husband never disclosed. Bank accounts I was never told existed, and evidence that my husband has been systematically transferring marital assets into entities designed to be invisible to me and to this court. She handed the documents to the bailiff. This is a summary prepared by Sandra Okafor, a certified forensic accountant with 20 years of experience in asset recovery. She has reviewed the documentation and provided a preliminary assessment. Marcus was on his feet. This is ridiculous. She broke into my office. She stole documents. This is— Mr. Ashford. Judge Coleman's voice cracked like a whip. Sit down and do not speak unless I address you directly. He sat, his face flushed with fury. Judge Coleman accepted the documents from the bailiff. She reviewed them in silence, her expression unreadable. Page after page, account statements, property records, wire transfers. When she looked up, something had changed in her eyes. Mr. Whitfield. Her voice was ice. Were you aware that your client has been hiding assets? Gregory's composure cracked for just a second. Your Honor, these allegations are completely unsubstantiated. My client is a successful businessman with complex financial holdings. Any appearance of— I asked you a simple question. Were you aware? No, Your Honor. The judge turned to Marcus. Mr. Ashford, I'm going to ask you directly. Have you disclosed all marital assets in your financial filings with this court? Marcus's jaw tightened. I've disclosed everything required by law. Then you won't mind explaining why these documents show over $4 million in assets that don't appear anywhere in your filing. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time since Tori had walked into the courtroom, he looked afraid. Judge Coleman set the documents down. Here's what's going to happen, she said. I am denying the emergency custody petition. The restraining order is vacated. Mrs. Ashford will have immediate access to the marital residence and her children. Your Honor, Gregory started. I'm not finished. The judge leaned forward. I'm also ordering a full forensic audit of all marital assets at Mr. Ashford's expense. I am appointing Sandra Okafor as the court's forensic accountant, and I am scheduling a full custody and asset hearing in 60 days, by which time I expect complete transparency from both parties. She looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Ashford, I've been on this bench for 23 years. I've seen every kind of lie, every kind of manipulation, every kind of financial game a wealthy spouse can play. I don't tolerate any of it. She picked up her gavel. If I find out that you've hidden anything else, if I find out that you've lied to this court in any way, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. Am I making myself clear? Marcus's voice was hoarse. Yes, Your Honor. Good. The judge looked at Tori. Mrs. Ashford, you'll have access to the residence by end of business today. The court will provide an order for the sheriff to accompany you if needed. She raised her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel fell. And Tori Ashford, who had walked into that courthouse with nothing but an envelope and the truth, had just won the first battle of the war. But as she gathered her documents, as she watched Marcus storm out of the courtroom with his lawyer scrambling behind him, she knew this was only the beginning, because the envelope she'd brought today was just the summary. The full truth. The $4.7 million, the hidden properties, the fraud, the other woman, the house in Wilmington, all of it was still waiting to be exposed. And in 60 days, she was going to expose every single bit of it. She walked out of the courtroom into the bright Charlotte sunshine. Her phone buzzed. A text from Renee. Well? Tori typed back. I won. Emergency custody denied. Restraining order vacated. I'm going home to my kids. 3 crying emojis. Then, I knew it. What's next? Tori looked back at the courthouse, at the building where her husband had tried to destroy her and failed. Next, she typed, We find out what else he's hiding, because I don't think we've even scratched the surface. She pocketed her phone and walked toward the street, already planning her next move. Marcus Ashford thought he could take everything from her. He had no idea what was coming next.